One of the managers raised his hand and said, "Rick, plan to be your best. This is all well and good, but I'm too busy to plan."
Yeah.
And there it was right there. Another way of saying it is I'm excessively busy. And if there's excess in anything, there's a need to do something that you and I talked about the other day, and that was the greater, I'll put it this way, the level of pain, whatever it might be in life or in business, the level of pain must be matched by the level of intentionality.
Hmm.
And it begs the question, all right, how do we be intentional? One way is to do just as you're saying, be intentional about unplugging,
Yeah.
taking time off, especially for planning. What do you do yourself to help relieve stress when it seems to be excessive or overwhelming?
Yeah, I mean, there is a couple of things. First of all, I mean, one of the techniques that actually myself and my wife adopted a while back or whatever is it's a very simple one because here humans are hardwired, right, to we overreact all the time because remember we come from the fight or flight whatever, but we tend to overreact to things. And one of the techniques is to look at, okay, this situation, your initial reaction to it may be like off the charts, but then you ask yourself, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where does this issue lie? Is this a 1 or a 10? And there's some, so what is, how important, how significant is this? And oftentimes you'll find that you are reacting as if it's a 10, but it's really a 2. And you're, and when you start to actually look at things through that lens, and you start to actually question yourself, and it comes back to personal accountability and all of that kind of stuff. But if you take for a moment, if you get really stressed and overwhelmed about something, and then you stop for a second and you say, okay, where is it on this scale? Is
Mhm.
it a 1 or a 10? Okay, it's a 5. Yes, that's something that needs attention, but it's not a 10. So I don't need to go off the deep end here. So I can pull myself back and say, okay, I can figure it out. And then also know, okay, regardless of whether it's a 1, a 5, or a 10, okay, next thing is like, what do I need to solve this? And what do I need to solve this? And if it's a 1 or a 2, maybe there's nothing you need to do to solve this. Maybe you just need to tell yourself to, cop on a little bit and move on, and don't be getting upset about things that don't need your attention, or you may need to overcome. So that's the first thing I think is identifying your stress, identifying what the cause of that stress is, and then really identifying, is it should it be causing you this level of emotional and physical anxiety. And sometimes, it's great to kind of catch yourself, and you realize, then it kind of falls away because you realize, hang on, I've been at a 10 and this is really a 2. So you kind of get some energy back when you relax. The other thing I do, and this is what I also encourage people, like I personally, I do martial arts. That's my hobby. uh,
Mhm.
but I always encourage people to find something that doesn't allow you think, right? Find a hobby, find a pastime, whatever it is you do, something that doesn't allow you think, right? Don't say like, people say like, oh, I will, go for a walk and whatever, which might be nice and that. But if you're just thinking the whole time and you're stressing about your work and everything, that's not going to help you. So I always say, like, find something that allows you to switch, that forces your brain to switch off, right? Something that you've got to focus on. So just find something outside of work that, at least for a period of time, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, where you can't think about work, you can't think about the stressors in life. You can just think about what you're doing in the moment. And it really doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. It's that moment of completely focused on something different, allows your body to reset, allows your mind to reset. So those are the things I would say. I'd say, first of all, is identify what's stressing you and really figure out, is it a big stressor or not, or am I overreacting to it? And also remember, there's a solution to everything. There's always a solution. It may not be the solution you want, but there's always a solution.
Very
And
true.
second
Very
thing,
true.
is find something in your life that allows you to not think, to be in the
Yes.
moment.
Great advice, and I love those questions that you raised. The idea of taking time to, and it can be very quick,
Mhm.
pause.
Yeah.
And basically, that's part of the essence of the three steps of resilience, which are part of the plan to be your best approach. Tune in, plan, make choices on those things that you can control, and then be your best, follow through. Those questions, as I was listening to you, I was thinking of how friends like Yvette Bethel and Steve Goodner some years ago introduced me to an organization called 6 Seconds, which is based, they're experts when it comes to emotional intelligence. The asking questions like that pause allows those at least 6 seconds to go by where that initial reaction that you described, those initial emotional reactions that we have, typically the peak of them lasts only 6 to 10 seconds.
Mm.
And that exercise of tuning in, asking those questions, it lets those seconds go by. Then you gain more control over being able to respond to those emotions and move on, even choose other emotions to pursue, and then
Mhm.
make better choices. The stress level comes down.
Yeah, and like you just said there, there's a key part of what you said there is about choices, right? And that at the end of the day is, yeah, we do have the choice, right? We have the choice about how we are going to react to a situation, and that's and sometimes we people say well, I have no control over the circumstances, and you go, no, maybe you don't, but you certainly have control over how you react to those circumstances. And I think
Exactly.
that's the key part, is that you always have a choice. So there's no such thing as when people say I have no choice. Yeah, you always have a choice. It may not be the greatest choice, that you maybe not one that you would have liked for yourself, but you do have choices. And I think it's so important to take a little bit of power back and not be so overwhelmed by the world outside of you,
Mhm.
because you have zero control over what's going on in the world. It's like, you've zero control over the wars, you've zero control over the economy, all of those kind of good things. What you do have control of is how you show up in the world. And that's
So true.
and you have complete control over how you show up in the world. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people, like, we don't take advantage of the fact that we have control over how we show up in the world. Nobody else has control over how we show up in the world.
Very, very true. That's so important. And that's good encouragement. A lot of the people who listen to Plan to Be Your Best Live are people who are experiencing chronic pain, they're grieving, there might be recovering from orthopedic surgery, such as what I'm familiar with 7 times over.
Mhm.
That's very encouraging, because a lot of people come to me and say, how do I take my mind off blank, whatever the pain point might be? Something's so overwhelming, they feel a sense of lack of control, and that's a wonderful reminder to say, we do have the ability, especially to pause, use tools like the 3 steps of resilience to tune
Mhm.
in, think of your options, make some choices. Remember that power that you have, that John's talking about.
Yeah.
You've needed to navigate pain in your own life, John.
Yeah.
Tell me about what happened with your back and the surgery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So about I guess about 20, 25 years ago, I started to suffer from really chronic lower back pain, and it just got progressively worse. I found I had a bulging disc or whatever. And I went through all of the different stages over like kind of 15-year period of every type of treatment, even from mind body, the whole thing. And at times I was able to get it slightly under control, but then it just got progressively worse, and it was like down my leg, all of that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, and it was debilitating. And
Mhm.
this is where I feel huge empathy towards people who struggle with any kind of pain or whatever, because as you said, the thing about when you're in chronic pain is it impacts your mind and body, and it's very hard for you to think of anything else other than the pain that you are in. And unfortunately, at times like that takes you where you have to say, okay, I'm going to overcome this, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to stay positive, even at a time when I have no reason to. Like I said at the very beginning, is
Mhm.
sometimes you have to have belief that there's a solution there, and sometimes that's really hard when there's no evidence of that in front of you. So to cut a long story short, I eventually I came to the stage where the disc was bulging so far into the nerve that literally when the orthopedic surgeon showed me a 3D model of it, and as you turn the 3D model, you could, to the point where you could no longer see the nerve because the thing was sticking, and so it was really bad. But they said, we can do a microdiscectomy here, lop off the stuff that's jutting out, and the chances of your discs, like the rest of your disc, seems pretty good, so you'll be all right. But here's the struggle, and I know, Rick, you've been through this much more than me, but I think here's the struggle when you go to do something like this. So what do you naturally do? You start researching online, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, what you get online is horror stories. And so I went online and I was like, oh man, like the success rate and all these people who did this and it didn't work out and all of that. And then I had to kind of stop myself, and I had to also ask myself, who are the people who post online? Generally speaking, it's another kind of human nature thing, right? If it works out, we kind of forget we're off and we're back with our world, right? If it doesn't work out, we're online, telling everybody it didn't work, and and we attract all those kind of people. So you have to stop for a moment and say, I may not be getting an accurate picture here. I may just be hearing from people who've had bad experiences. So I need to finally ask myself, am I going to trust the professionals here who've said that this is a good chance of success and all of that? And so I put my faith in that, and I had the surgery, and thankfully it was successful. But I will say, initially I was discharged and sent home, and everything seemed okay. And then about an hour in, I had the most debilitating pain I've ever had in my life, to the point of a level of pain. You probably understand this better than me, but it was a level of pain that I didn't know existed because I'd
Yeah.
never experienced it before. Literally the level of pain where I could not move my body. I couldn't move my body even a fraction without being in excruciating, and that was shocking to me because I'd never experienced that before. I didn't realize,
Mhm.
because if you don't experience it, you look at other people, you can't relate to it, right? You can't relate to that. And anyway, so cut a long story short, we got medicine and stuff. There was some little internal bleeding that had caused this, and we managed to overcome it. And then I think the other part, Rick, is over the next weeks and months is like getting back into getting to walking, and then getting a little more active. And eventually, I felt good enough, and I said, okay, I'm going to go back to martial arts. And I was a little nervous, as you would be, for a little bit, and then what and then it just it just started to unfold that, yeah, it was working. And yeah, do I get back pain? Sure, I get back pain like anybody gets back pain if I
Mhm.
overdo it in the yard, like doing work, and then it goes away. But initially it was also trusting the regular pain, right? And not panicking when you got some pain. So go, oh no, everything's gone again, and just go, no, I overdid it. Like, this is just not. So trust, I think that's the other part, is starting to retrust your body as well when you've been through something. I think that can be a challenge as well. But for me, I mean, number one, I find it's kind of miraculous, like how well I've done since, and I feel blessed for that. But I think is what I learned out of it is you have to do your research. You have to take advice. You got to do the right things, but ultimately you can talk yourself out of things too if you're not careful. So you
Mhm.
at some stage you have to put some trust in some process or something, and and then you have to kind of see it, and then you have to see it through. But I have massive empathy, and sympathy for people who struggle with pain, because anybody who has never struggled with chronic pain doesn't understand what it does to your head. Because and you'll know this, Ray, what it does to your head, because it can be so hopeless, it can be so in your head, it can be so overwhelming that you can't think about anything else. And so it affects you mentally in a massive way. And that's why I would say, like, mind body connection, you can't divorce the two of them. And particularly if you have chronic pain, and also your brain is a very complex thing, and sometimes it'll accentuate the pain in your body because it's protecting you from things in your brain that you're not dealing with. So
Yes.
it's all very complex. But I think for me, at the end of the day, is at my lowest points with my back pain, the only thing, I said, I keep coming back to belief. The only thing that kept me going was uh, believing that there had to be some solution. There had to be a solution somehow.
That belief is a reflection of your hope, not
Yeah.
only that your need, it's a reflection of hope, which can be elusive, which can disappear, especially for people
Mhm.
who are living with chronic pain, high impact chronic pain in particular. The longer it goes, the more despair can be part of the equation.
Mhm.
And that's very encouraging, a good, very important reminder. So much of the conversations early on and the people that I've cared for over the past 20 plus years, whatever the pain points might be, include that that journey with the head, the mental journey, the emotional journey, and that idea of that how much it can shake the sense of self, which
Mhm.
means it can shake your sense of what you believe, what you even believe about yourself, what you believe about the possibilities that there's a reason to be hopeful. And
Mhm.
some of the exercises that we spend a lot of time on are re-anchoring in things that are true and good and unchangeable about the person. I've had numerous people say, I don't know who I am anymore and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a job loss or re-entering the job workforce or dealing with tremendous grief, tremendous loss, and actually loss. You know
Loss.
what it's like to experience loss, basically the loss of comfort, at least.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the most profound things in life is loss. And and I think sometimes people think of it, they think loss just in terms of life and death, right? But we experience loss in so many different ways. Like you said, if you have debilitating pain, you grieve the loss of your freedom, of being able to do the things that you used to do. um, if you're depressed or whatever, you can grieve the loss of joy.
Yeah.
There's so many things uh, out there, and loss is something that seems that it appears permanent to us always, right? That it's lost and gone forever. And sometimes it's hard to go, yeah, maybe it's temporarily not available in my life right now, but maybe I can get back to a point where I have some of that back. But I think loss is very profound. I think it's something that we don't acknowledge most of the time. We only acknowledge it, as I said, when it's big things, like our like somebody dying or whatever. Then we acknowledge, yes, there's the loss there. But we have mini and micro losses all the time that we don't acknowledge.
So true. So true. It's been very interesting to have the conversations, including some this past several months with people who are, they've lost a sense of encouragement, loss of a sense of hope. And we found, and I've seen this time and time again over the years, and it's part of what goes into the plan to be your best approach, is to pause, spend some time talking about and caring for what's being grieved, but talking about encouragement, talking about hope, and focusing on it in a way. And the plan to be your best is basically the way to approach it to help facilitate each each person participating, so that the more they actually focus on encouragement, focus on hope, talk about those things. And I'm referring to not just a quick
Sure.
conversation, but 45 minutes, an hour. The more we talk about it in a certain way, the more everyone starts to experience it. And those are helpful reminders. It actually is a matter of activating the neuroplasticity, the ability to say, all right, I can experience hope. I can experience encouragement. If I do it once, I can do it again and create a pattern of that. And
Mhm.
it helps to re-enter, uh, revitalize that sense of hope, the sources of hope and the sources for encouragement.
Yeah, no, no, I would agree, and it is, and don't get me wrong. Like I understand for people out there, things can seem extremely hopeless, and so, like you said, I mean, being able to talk about it, or even just being able to just identify one positive thing, well, because sometimes all it takes is just that one little green shoot of positivity that you can maybe nurture and water and grow, and so just looking for those small shoots of encouragement. And I think the other thing too is, uh, while everybody's experience is very personal and very different, um, it's not completely unique either. So other people have experienced it. So there's other people who you can talk to, who you can relate to, who can help you. And I think that's it. I think sometimes we start to go, ours is our own situation is, well, it's mine, it's very personal, it's very different, nobody really could understand it. And you think, yeah, there's an element of truth in that. Of course, it's your own personal experience, but other people have experienced very similar things and they can certainly help you.
So true, and that's one of the reasons why not to go it alone.
Hmm.
The In fact, probably I'd say the one of the most valuable aspects of setting yourself on a journey to strengthen your own unique resilience is to do it in the company of a small group, others who
Hmm.
are going through it. Years ago, I had started a group called Take Heart, which actually was meeting weekly to basically lift up each other, journey what was being grieved together. I've started again, and let me just take this chance to actually say two things. One, John and I are here to answer your questions live or even after this. If you're watching the recording, go ahead and share any thoughts in the comments or questions. We're monitoring that. We will continue to, even as this video lives on, and we'll check them and always provide you with answers. But the idea of Take Heart, it's now again the first and third Sunday of every month at 3 o'clock Eastern, including this coming Sunday. And you can find out about it at rickcram.com. Just curious, the with your work, your professional work. I was enjoying your podcast recording the other day. Hillary was one of the guests. Do you often have two people on or more? And I'm leading.
Generally, it's one person, but occasionally it can be two or more. And sometimes we do live panel discussions, which could have two, three, four people. But generally speaking, it's just one on one.
Isn't it interesting to notice the dynamic when it is a group?
Yeah,
There,
yeah, yeah. It is. It is. It's good. I mean, it's an interesting challenge, for the host because you have to have a little more dexterity, and you also, and sometimes, if you have two guests on, it's not. Sometimes it's not even clear among them who should answer what or whatever. So you have to do a little bit of choreography there too. But it's an interesting dynamic. But what I think is great about podcasting, Rick, I'll just say, not to go off topic here, but I just think it's just it's giving you access to so many interesting conversations and just listening to so many interesting perspectives on people you would never have heard from before there was this capability. Obviously because media was very tightly controlled and there's very little access to it. Now we all have access to broadcast media, so it's a very interesting phenomenon.
it really is. I find it fascinating being a communications professional. I
Mhm.
love it, especially connecting with people that I otherwise would never talk to or meet,
Yeah.
and find that they are truly blessings in my life. So back to the theme of what you believe when it comes to the idea of whatever the pain point might be in personal life or in business. Your beliefs, your values are so important. And what are you seeing in terms of what people are when there's a lot of uncertainty, such as we're seeing today? What are people? What are they anchoring in when it comes to their beliefs?
Yeah, I think I think we live in a challenging time. To be honest, I mean, I'm sure all times are challenging in their own way, but I think we live in a challenging time because I think I think people have lost a lot of anchors. They don't have very many anchors in their lives, or they don't even understand what an anchor is. And and also, I think sometimes we try to be too much and everything, and you have to sort of pull yourself back to. I mean, you talked about kind of principles or values earlier. I definitely think as you get older, you become much more focused on what your core, or you should, on what your core principles and values are. And you tend to have less of them, but much more rigid, right? Because maybe once upon a time you're idealistic, you have all of these like different ideas of principles. But then you realize over time that there are certain ones, maybe it's honesty and integrity. Things like that that are non-negotiable for you, and those are the anchors. Those are the things that you need to figure out, like what do I want to be, what do I want when I look in the mirror? What do I want to see in front of me? Do I want to see, an honest looking in person with integrity? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want other people to see me? So figuring out what are those values, what are those principles, what is the essence of you, and that you really care about. And it's obviously it evolves, and we're all works in progress. But I think if you don't have a couple of those, values, and one of mine is like, I tend to be very candid, right? And I believe in candor, right? It's not something that always other people appreciate, and but that's okay, because I have decided that that's it's important to me to communicate honestly, even when it's difficult to do so. So I think it's really important. Just figure out what are your core non-negotiable values or principles, and then really focus in on those, and just push all the rest aside, because it's all noise.
Excellent, excellent. So another good word of encouragement. Thinking about those things that cross over between challenges in work, our
Mm.
professional lives, challenges in life, dealing with back pain and back surgery like you have. One similarity I'm thinking of, the importance of affirmations. And affirmations, after all, are going to either reflect your beliefs or seek to establish perhaps new ones. In my marketing and sales career, I did ad sales in
Hmm.
major magazines for the first 10 years of my career. And I remember people like Brian Tracy and others would encourage affirmations.
Yeah, I know, Brian.
What are your thoughts on affirmations, and do you have any affirmations that you recite periodically?
Yeah. No, I think affirmations have a place and are important, because I think here's the other thing. We feed our brains with such negativity, right? Most of our self-talk every day is negative, right? And again, as I say, it's kind of fascinating how we're hardwired as humans. It's like if you're driving along in your car, and there may be like 10 cars on the road with you, and then somebody beeps their horn. What's your natural reaction? Was that me? You beeping at me? Right? There's no evidence, like there's 10 other cars, could be anybody, could be over there, but that our natural instinct is to react, right? And so we're very hardwired in a negative sense, right? And just like we're always able to see the problems and everything, it's hard for us to see the positive things sometimes. So I think that's one of the most important things to do, is to start to reorient your thinking, and to try and overcome that natural instinct towards a negative. And therefore I think affirmations can help. I mean, even if it's something as simple as you saying like, I have all the tools I need to do whatever it is I need to do today, right? Just, and I have
Perfect.
just that simple as that. That way you're starting to go out with an abundant mindset, as opposed to a poverty mindset, or a finite mindset. And I think that's the other thing too. And again, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the pervasive culture is always forcing this idea of scarcity on us, right?
Mhm.
Of And then it pits us against one another, because if you have a scarcity mindset, you go, okay, the pie is only so big, and if Rick gets a slice of it, then that's a slice I didn't get, right? And therefore now the pie is smaller, so now I got to compete with it, and it's dog eat dog, instead of going, there's an abundance in the world. There's enough. The world keeps evolving, and people keep doing things and growing and all of that. So there is abundance there. The evidence is there that there's abundance in the world. So if you take an abundant mindset, then you become less competitive. And I don't mean competitive, less competitive in a bad way, because I mean being competitive is a good thing because you want to do, but you maybe competitive, even the word is the wrong word. Maybe you become less negative or jealous or focused on, darn, that person got ahead, therefore somehow that's pushed me back. Why has that pushed me back? It hasn't. My situation hasn't changed. Like if something great happens to you today, Rick, right, it doesn't affect me because my situation has not changed one iota, right? If I decide to then get all upset and go, darn, like Rick got that and I didn't, and my life sucked, whatever, that's me. That's all on me. My life, your success hasn't impacted my life whatsoever. And I think that's part of what we need to do, is we need to start to refocus on positive, and affirmations can absolutely play a part in that. Uh, and maybe you do things simple as here's a simple, a nice one for people. You know, if you wake up in the morning and you've got a roof over your head and you had a decent night's sleep in a decent bed, maybe you should start your day with gratitude and just say, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I'm grateful that I have this what I have today. Because again, we're always looking at the things we don't have, and we're very, very rarely focusing on the things that we do have.
There's a Plan to Be Your Best group conversation just a couple of weeks ago on this topic. As I'm listening to you, I'm hearing, and I was wondering if you would say it, and if you didn't, I was going to, the importance of gratitude, as
Hmm.
well as something that you pointed out, and that is not comparing ourselves to others. Because the idea of something good happened to somebody else, they might have gotten a sale, and I didn't. And there's two aspects of that. There's, if I have a negative reaction to that, or if it triggers me in some way, that's something I can't control. And I'm letting that trigger me. And yet, and so if I can't control that, and therefore also that other point, not
Yeah,
compare ourselves to others, but that
yeah.
having that gratitude you're talking about,
Hmm.
saying I've got enough, what I need, that sense and that attitude of gratitude is such a wonderful place to be, whether we're navigating business challenges or pain.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And there's a song by Morrissey, the artist, that we hate it when our friends become successful. And I just think it's a great song because it's all tongue in cheek, but I mean it's a great song because it is the reality, is that we do is that our instinctual reaction is, because we're so self-centered, our instinctual reaction is, Rick got this, how does this affect me? And rather than, well, congratulations, Rick, and that's something that we have to acknowledge, and we have to catch ourselves and realize, that your success is not at my cost. And
Right.
in fact, I should be using you as it should, I should be using that as encouragement to say, great, he did that, then maybe I can do something just as good, and turn it on its head. uh, and so I think there's lots of and the other thing that you just mentioned there, we were talking about comparison, and that's the trouble, is we live in a comparison culture, and social media unfortunately has uh, created this alternative reality, if you like. And when we indulge too much in social media, and we pay too much attention to social media, that can have devastating impacts on your psyche. Because here's the thing, right? If I see, yeah, maybe I start off my day, right, I wake up in the morning, and instead of saying hello to my significant other, I grab my phone, which is typically what people do now. As somebody said, once upon a time, when we woke up in the morning, we used to hop up and probably go to the bathroom. Now we hop on our phone first before we even do that. Uh, and the thing is, so if I hop on that in the morning, and first thing I see on my Instagram feed is Rick standing beside a new Lamborghini, and I go, darn, look at that, Rick's got a Lamborghini. And now I'm already starting off my day like in a deficit. I'm already like starting feeling like, oh, well, now it turns out that wasn't even your Lamborghini, but like I didn't wait long enough to figure that one out. I'm now just in a different headspace completely. And the problem is we're encouraged all the time to compare, compare, compare. We're we're being fed this constant stream of inadequate. You're inadequate, right? You don't have enough. You're not as good as this, but you don't have this. You don't have that. So it's feeding this sense of inadequacy, and the comparison culture is very insidious, right? And it's having severe, and I think it's going to have like huge mental health impacts. It's already, but it's going to have even more as social media, has the longer we have it and the longer we've experienced it. So I think that's when you have to consciously realize that we live in a comparison culture, and comparisons are being forced on you, and that 90% of what you're seeing is not real. And I think that's the other hard part too, is and it's getting worse. I love, just let me, just as an aside, I love now when somebody will say, "Oh, did you see that video of the woman who tried to bring the kangaroo onto the airplane?" And you go, "It's not real." It's not a real video. But people have lost kind of the sense of being able to discern the difference. So I just think that's really, really, really important, is you have to acknowledge that the pervasive culture is set up in such a way is to make you feel inadequate.
Such words to the wise. And actually, on the topic of leadership, we lead ourselves first and foremost. I've
Yep.
just noticed the colors changed here on my camera. Somebody just making an adjustment. The idea of when it comes to leadership, and this is part of what I have the conversations with the teams when I'm providing and facilitating a leadership program, is first and foremost we lead ourselves, and then we lead others. And I'm thinking of that because as I listen to you, you're describing and you're encouraging good, important points for ourselves as we lead ourselves, but also the kinds of messages that today's leaders would be well served to provide that same encouragement to their teams, to help them focus on with those kinds of positive perspectives. And the other thought I have listening to you is that there's so much encouragement in everything that you share. What are you seeing in terms of business leaders today and the way that they're leading themselves and leading their teams, and that encouragement factor?
Yeah, I think it's a very challenging time right now for particularly for maybe people who've been in leadership positions for a while, because they're getting bombarded with so many different messages about how they should lead, what they should do, and so many different buzzwords. Like I love the one where this goes like, leaders need to be vulnerable, right? And they target that word vulnerable and show vulnerability. And like, that's such a nebulous term, right? And in especially in a business context, it's so vague. What do you mean by that, right? And some people take it to an extreme where they say, well, now I just need to share everything about myself. And like, nobody wants that, right? At the end of the day, people still want leaders to be somebody that they can respect and admire, right? Now, what I will say is, yes, you should be, you need to be empathetic. You need to connect with people. You need to understand the people that you're working with, but you shouldn't get caught up in, again, because it then starts to become performative, right? If it's not genuine. So if you say, oh, I need to be more of this, but that's not who you really are. I always come back to my compatriot, Oscar Wilde, who said, be yourself because everyone else is taken. And for me, that is it. It's like it's to be an authentic leader is to be authentically yourself,
Yeah.
whatever that means. And people will gravitate towards real authenticity, and if they see you as somebody who really lives out who you are, and who you are is the same, is consistent. Because at the end of the day, I think consistency is the thing that people want most. We hate surprises, right? We hate if you go in, say your boss or whatever, you go, kind of mood is he in today, right? Or she, or whatever. And you want consistency. You want to know, even if it's bad, even if it's not it's not the answer you want from your boss or in a situation, at least you go, well, at least that was, he's consistent, right? At least the guy is consistent. And so I think for leaders today, I think number one is like be very sure of who you are. Like, so self-awareness, right? And if you haven't done self-awareness work, and if you haven't really looked at how you show up in the world and how you impact the world, that's a starting point there. But if you are, you have, and you understand who you are, then I think you should make sure that you act consistently and act and always operate according to your principles and your values. And that's what people will relate to at the end of the day. You don't have to become gimmicky, you don't have to be performative, you don't have to be throwing out the latest buzzwords, you don't have to suddenly be coming up to people and, telling all of your, your deepest darkest secrets to them and opening up, because no, people want somebody that they can trust, somebody who's consistent, and then somebody who they believe sees, hears, and understands them. So the other part of it is, who is a leader, is we have to become better at listening to people and understanding people and making sure that people feel seen. And that's something you can't fake, because people can see that immediately. Like if you say, okay, okay, today I'm going to pretend that I really care about everybody and I'm going to go around, like people will go, yeah, whatever. But if they see that you genuinely see them as people and as individuals, and you take time to understand their perspectives, then you have happy, then you're going to have a very happy relationship.
Was doing the research for the first Plan to Be Your Best program, the Federal Home Loan Banks came to me and said,
Mhm.
Rick, we're having our annual leadership conference and our managers, they're in pain. They had market conditions that
Yeah.
they've never experienced before. And they said, how do we lead ourselves and our teams through this? And based on everything that I put into from my experience, as well as the research that I did, it reflected exactly what you just described. The first one of the 8 paths of intentionality, again, if whatever the pain might be, including in business, the level of pain must be matched by the level of intentionality. The first way to be intentional is anchoring in who you are, your values, and so forth. Set a foundation. The first path of intentionality is prepare. And being prepared includes, the essence of it is getting to identify, re-anchor in who you are, your values. And then the second one of the paths of intentionality is listen. It's
Hmm.
listening skills, listening to yourself, the words, listening to perspectives of others, how to use active listening skills with others. So what you're describing, you've got the very same wisdom that is reflected in the Plan to Be Your Best approach. I have a feeling if we were to talk all afternoon, we would find that there's an awful lot in common there.
Absolutely.
Let
Yeah.
me just do a time check. How are you doing time wise?
Yeah, I've got a few more minutes. Yeah, we're good.
Very good.
But yeah, I just on what you just said there about listening, it's funny because most people don't understand what active listening really is. I mean, hearing is just a physical activity. It's a physical phenomena, right? Listening is actually, processing the words, but active listening is taking that and actually really trying to understand, and not to, and because let's face it, what do we do? I mean, this is the thing that salespeople have to, the best salespeople have to learn, or they do innately, is is asking a question, but then really listening to what the answer is, right? Really trying to understand, rather than thinking about what am I going to say next, and oh, is this something I can jump on right now? It's like, no, no, no. It's actually trying to really understand what you said, and then validating it, saying like, okay, let me just check that I understood what you said. They use this in family and couples therapy. This kind of thing is where, okay, this, say the this person is going to speak, right, and they speak, and then the other person can't can't respond until they can show the original person that they fully understood what they said. And it's amazing sometimes how long that would take. That may take 5 or 6 or 7 goes for them to really get, which shows you how poorly we really listen. and how poorly
So
we process and how poorly we understand. And I think that's one of the greatest things you can give yourself is the gift of active listening, and say, like, I'm really going to tune into this conversation and I'm going to understand exactly what that person is saying. And I'm not going to just decide I understand it. I'm going to validate it with them so that they say, yes, absolutely, that's exactly what I meant.
I hear it all the time, especially in the leadership programs, when early on in the conversation about listening, someone admits and everyone else nods their head. They admit, when I'm listening to someone else, I'm really thinking about what I'm going to say in response,
Hmm.
as opposed to, such as you're saying, listening so well that you can echo back, we can reflect back what they said, listening even more so that you can focus in on what's not being said.
Yeah.
There's so many dynamics involved with that.
Yeah. And the other thing too, Rick, which is fascinating, is we're so scared of silence. We
Yeah.
hate silence. We're always, we call it awkward silence, right? And why is it? Why should it be awkward? I mean, and particularly, like, if I ask you a question and you don't answer immediately, well, I just asked you a question. Surely I should give you time to actually contemplate your answer and think about your answer. But if you don't answer me immediately, what do? I fill the silence, right? I fill the gap, and now I've knocked you. You're not thinking about what you were, now taking it all, and our conversation remains superficial because of the fear of providing silence for people to actually think and contemplate. So it is I think today, I mean, it's an amazing amount of people who, if you put them and said, okay, I'm going to put you for 10 minutes in this room, complete silence, no gadgets, nothing, you're just going to sit there, people go crazy, couldn't handle it.
After all, especially in radio, they've
Yeah.
called it that
Dead
silence
air.
dead air. It's dead.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not. It's very fertile and very and it's not dead at all. It's very much alive and fertile if you give it the opportunity.
Right, right. Let me just pause. I've got one or two questions for you, John. But
Mhm.
how can people reach you?
Yeah, you find me John Golden on LinkedIn, easy to find. You find me at pipelinersales.com for the CRM, or sales. Go to our YouTube, Sales Pop YouTube channel for the podcast.
I'll include links below here on YouTube, as well as a blog post to follow in the days ahead on my website. Do reach out to John. As you can tell, there's so much wisdom. There are wonderful beliefs. There's a lot of encouragement that he has to share with you, and there's just about that comment that you meant, that there's life in that pause. There's life in everything that you're describing. There's goodness. It's fuel for life, including
Yeah.
for your resilience. I view resilience as something that is a living thing. I we were talking about affirmations earlier, and I recently elevated my affirmation. Instead of saying I am resilient, I say I am resilience. I It's
Mhm.
alive in me, and I feed it. It needs energy, to be sure, um, but it's a living part of me. And I find that when I actually I'm exhausted after a day of many blasts of pain, I will say I am resilient, and then that fills the void.
Yeah.
Any other affirmations that you particularly encourage others to say, or that you share for
Uh,
yourself?
I mean, I think the other thing, the other affirmation is I'm worthy. That's it. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, have a huge, profound sense of unworthiness. It can be bred into people. It can go back from. It doesn't matter. But I think just to say, I'm worthy. I'm worthy of success. I in my life, whatever success means to you, and it doesn't, it means different things to different people, and I think that's important also, because sometimes, especially the world today, it's become so superficial. We tend to think like success equals money, influence, whatever, power. Now, it doesn't. There's so many people who have wonderfully successful lives that have nothing to do with any of that. So I think that's the thing, is just to tell yourself every day, I'm worthy of success. I'm worthy of having the things that I want in my life, and I have the power to manifest them.
That's wonderful, and it's so important, and it's so true. I'd even say this. I like to encourage others to think in terms of when, and you know what this is like. Perhaps you thought of this when you were in so much pain and going through the back surgery. There's a, it's easy to have a sense that I'm not as worthwhile. I don't have as much value. But I believe when we, such as you've done a number of times in this conversation, reframe the thinking
Mhm.
and think about what you're going through, whether it's in life or in business, that what we're going through, even though it might be challenging, we can grow from that. And
Mhm.
therefore, we're uniquely qualified to help others down the road when they go through a similar challenge. We
Yeah.
can strengthen our own ability to increase our value in encouraging others.
Yeah, sometimes our greatest teachers are not always obvious to us. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be something like it can be, adversity. Adversity is a great teacher. Sometimes we don't think of it that way. The things that have happened to us maybe in our lives that we're saying, oh, I regret this or regret that. Maybe no, maybe you shouldn't regret it. Maybe you should look and say, that was a teaching, that was a teacher. Yeah. And so I think we have to also be aware like that some of your greatest teachers will not be the obvious ones, and the greatest lessons you will learn will be from surprising circumstances.
So more encouragement there. And why don't we conclude on that note? Thank you so much, John. So we'll
Yeah,
take
thank you.
away from this where are our beliefs, including looking at acknowledging what our teachers are, especially those most challenging experiences in life and in business, and appreciate them. Look what we can learn from them and use it. Thank you,
Absolutely.
John, very much.
Thank you,
And
Rick, for having me.
I'll look forward to your next podcast as well.